So here in Photoshop, I have a person working on a car, and I wanted to mask him out because the original image, I'll show you what the original looks like.
So are you in Photoshop now?
Yeah, so this is Photoshop, and the original image looked like this. And it was kind of dark in this area where he's working on the wheel. So what I did was I kind of masked out different areas, and I masked out himself, the person, the mechanic. So there's one layer in here where uh, the mask is focused on just the mechanic, and I did that so I could lighten him up. So you see how I have this layer right here says curves. So I turn it on, it's lighter, turn it off, it's darker. So I have this layer here to lighten him up. And then I have the background of the car itself, which I didn't do anything to. I just kept it normal. And then I have a layer set up just for the wheel part because I wanted to do the same thing. If I turn off this layer that says curves, it gets darker. If I turn it on, it gets lighter. So I'm kind of controlling different aspects of the design, the artwork, so I can lighten and darken individually different parts of it without doing the whole thing. And I'm using a series of masks. Um, Let me find, let's use some of this stuff. So I was working with excuse it. With the InDesign project, I was working with that artwork. It was a female mechanic. Um, Sorry, I have so many things open here. Let me find that female mechanic image again. So, okay, so Photoshop is clear. Let's see. So I'm going to go into InDesign, and it was this document right here. So I'm going to open that up again in InDesign. Hey, by the way, did everybody was everybody able to download InDesign? Can I do like another poll? I just want to make sure everybody has InDesign now. So nobody had any problems with it? Okay. So here in this document, I have this mechanic and she's working on the car. And I went through that process last time of making a mask. So for the assignment, I want you to use her, not her, I mean, pick your background image. It can be any background image. We're kind of focusing on like two types of publications for the background image. So it could be a how-to magazine, or it could be a tabloid, like a sensationalistic tabloid. So we have two options. So here I have her. Now, there's a lot of stuff going on in the background, and if you want to have some text on top, let me just kind of create a text box here. And I hit W to go into the normal mode so you can actually see the grid and the columns and the gutters. So W was the shortcut for that, to go into that column mode. And I'm going to draw a text box. So I hit the T tool and add some text here. And this like auto repair made easy. And I'm going to make the text bigger. But it's just hard to see because the black text on the busy background is hard to read. And I'll actually change the font too. Just give it a thicker sans serif font. So even when I pick this font, Myriad Bold, it's still hard to read. So what I did in this circumstance, so they didn't really expect everybody to know how to make a mask, is I added a gradient and I faded out the gradient, and I had that gradient on a layer between the background image and this type. So actually, let me take that type and put it into the text layer. So I hit Control X, and I'm going to click on the text layer. And what you can do is when you cut and paste something and you want to have it in the same position, you can go into Edit and you go to Paste in Place, or it's Control Alt Shift V. Hold on, that layer is hidden. So Control Alt Shift V, paste in place. And so to make this readable, though, when I paste it there, it's still not readable. I have a busy background. I added a gradient. So there's this gradient here, and I can kind of control this gradient using the gradient tool. So if I just drag a line out, oops, and I have to be on the gradient layer, actually. And let me make sure I select that layer. So I can use this gradient tool, and I can drag out this line. It's a black to white gradient. I can go the opposite way to get the white part. So let's see here. And then you can change the different areas of the gradient. You can change by moving the colored boxes here. And the other thing I can do is use this gradient feather tool. So I can drag that out too. And that changes the amount of the gradient. So, you know, of course, that's going to be a lot easier to see. And then you can also play, once you lay down that gradient, you can play with the opacity. And opacity is up in the control bar up here. You know, so if I lower that opacity a little bit, both the mechanic, she's still readable, I can still see her, and the text is, you know, viewable as well. So both things at the same time are readable. But the thing about it is, I may not want to have this look where she is starting to actually fade out a little bit with the gradient on top. So that's where a mask might be better, like masking her out. So I quickly did it last time where I brought her into Photoshop, and I did it really fast. I knew a lot of people were saying, oh, that's too much information, it's too fast. So let me just do it again and show you a couple of different ways to do it. And it's not too difficult to mask her out. And what you can do too is you can mask her out and then so you can mask her out. I'll keep the background and fade the background back in Photoshop and then bring the image back in. So if I can right click on this image while it's in InDesign, I can go to make sure I have her selected. There you go. I can right click on the image here, and I can go to edit with. Sometimes edit original will actually open up Microsoft Paint instead of Photoshop. So I like to go with edit with and just pick Photoshop. And it opens up Photoshop. So now let's go through the process of creating the mask for her. So the quickest way to do it now, and this is something that's new in Photoshop, is this new tool called Object Selection Tool. So if you go into Photoshop and you want to mask out something really quickly, you can use this tool. The first thing you have to do though is double click on background in Photoshop. You double click on it and let me undo it. You double click, okay, this is what pops up. So let me double click on background and this new layer window pops up and you hit OK. Because a background in Photoshop means that there's no transparent pixels there for you to mask. It's a special layer in Photoshop, but if you double click on it and you select new layer, you transform the background into a regular layer and then you can mask out the image. And the other thing I want to do too in this circumstance is keep her and the image intact. So basically I'll duplicate this layer. So what you can do in Photoshop is you can select the layer and go down to the little plus box here to create a duplicate. You can also hit Control J, that does the same thing. But let's have a duplicate so we can actually have the lower layer intact. And let's do one more thing. Let's create a solid here. So we're going to create a solid and let's just make it white. Well, actually, let's make it green. And let's put that in between. So when we mask her out, we'll be able to see the mask and how it's working based on the fact that you'll see through this layer and see the green layer below it. So let's mask her out now. Let's go back to this tool. So this tool, the object selection tool, is a new tool in Photoshop. I think it's new for 2020. And basically what it does is when I select something with it, it understands what that selection is, and it will automatically make a mask based on that selection. So if I go over here, just drag over her, it will know that there's a person there, and it will know to create a selection around that person. So drag, let go, it thinks for a while. Actually, it did it like pretty perfectly. Like, look how, kind of perfectly. I mean, it didn't get everything that I wanted, but look at how it kind of knew. And how many people who know how to make masks are familiar with this tool? Because this is pretty new. So it works really good. Now, the thing is, though, it's adding some stuff that I don't want. Like, that's some of the background. I don't want that. It's actually cutting into the image, too. And so I may want to fix some of these things. So a quick way to fix it is using another tool in here called the Quick Selection tool. And it's like a paintbrush. So what that does is positive will add to the selection and negative will delete. To get the negative sign in this circle, you hit Alt. So if you hit Alt and kind of push in, it's going to like know what to push in and take away information, take away some of that selection. If I hit plus and just drag out like this, it's going to be able to fix things. Sometimes it does it too much. So the actual size of this quick selection tool will determine how much it will select. So you can use your square bracket keys. So I can use left square bracket, right square bracket to make it bigger or smaller. And so if I only want to get like a section of the arm here, I can use left square bracket, make it smaller, and then it's a little bit more precise. Like here, I want to get the hand. And this is kind of challenging too, because it's not the best image in the world. It's kind of like this low-res image. But it still works pretty good.
Is it option for Mac?
Yeah, on the Mac, it would be option. So instead of Alt, use option. Yep. So same thing going up in here in her hair. So I want to fix the hair. So I would hit Alt and kind of go up in there. It's going to be a little challenging because the hair of this like image kind of, the pixels are blending into the background. way I'm doing it now is by far like the best way to do it. Using a combination of object selection and quick selection. And I'll show you the other ways to do it too. But I just really made this very complicated selection really quickly, you know, and it worked really well. And now that I have this all set, what you do to create the mask is you create this, click on this little symbol down below. It's a rectangle with a dot in it, and it creates that mask for you. And so that green background is letting me see what is actually being masked out. Now you see there's stuff in here that is kind of showing through, like the blue background showing through her hair, the hands aren't perfect. Well, you can fix this a couple different ways. One of the things you can do is double click on the mask. When you hit this symbol down below, the rectangle with the dot in it, it makes the mask, and you know that the mask is selected because you have white corners. If you click on the image again, there's white corners on the image. Now the image is selected. If I click on the mask again, there's white corners around the mask, and I know that the mask is selected. So that's kind of one of the things you want to pay attention to. Are you selecting, you know, if you're selecting the mask or if you're selecting the image? Sorry, I just had to take some water. So the next thing you can do to fix some of this is to actually double click on the mask. And if you double click on the mask, if this properties window isn't there, so I'm going to close it out, double click on the mask, the properties window will open. Or if the properties window is there, then you can go straight into it. And then what you can do is go into select and mask button. And now you're kind of in a different mode. It kind of took all of your other palettes away. And now you're in this masking type mode. And you get a different toolbar up here. And then you have some settings you can play with. And so a couple of things you can do too is play with this edge detection. And what it does is starts to identify where the edge is and creates like this kind of like double kind of edge mask effect around everything. And you can actually see that if you click on show edges. And so see what I'm seeing here. If I turn this down, it goes away. If I turn it up, it comes back. And so what this is doing is creating this special transition from the mask to the background, and it's blending it into the background. So if I go back into show original, you know, everything is fine. But as you bring up this radius, higher I bring it up, the more that background blends. It's great for hair. So you see how if I go back to the beginning, the hair has background stuff coming through. If I raise it up a little bit, it helps out a lot. But it kind of affects other things as well. So you can play with more of these other sliders down below to change some of the other things with the image to help improve the mask. So smart radius is just a means to help get a better transition effect around the mask itself. Then you play with smooth. So what smooth does, which is kind of helpful, is if this radius damages other parts of the mask, the smooth can help kind of repair it a little bit. And then feather is kind of nice too. It has feather kind of softens it a little bit. And contrast kind of helps blend it in a little bit too. So it's kind of a combination of using these things to get right. And then edge shift will either push the mask in or push it out. So if I increase it, it's going to bring in more of the background. If I decrease it, it's going to cut into the image a little bit. So sometimes you play with that as well. So it's a matter of playing with all these different things. So I'll decrease the contrast. Maybe the edge shift just a little bit. the radius a little bit more. And then once I'm happy with it, I'll just hit OK. And there you go. So now it kind of fixed it a little bit. And now I'll go back, I'll take away the green, I'll go back to my background. And then what we can do for the InDesign project is maybe we add the gradient in here, but add it in the layer between the mechanic and the background. So I'm just going to click on, you can do this a couple different ways. I'll create a new layer by hitting the little plus box, make sure it's in between, click on the gradient here in Photoshop, open it up, make sure it's the color that I want. So I'll make sure it's like pure white, let's say. Here, the stopper down below is your color, and the stopper up above is the opacity. So this gradient is going from a solid white to a 0 opacity, which is fine, which is what I want. So I'm gonna hit OK, and I'm gonna drag that out, and I'm gonna drag it opposite way. And then, so I see more of her, and then maybe I can fade it out a little bit. So if I fade it out like this, now I can probably see the type on here a lot better. But at the same time, I can fully see her, and I don't lose. It looks better with having her fully visible instead of having the gradient go on top of her. You know, the gradient on top of her, you lose details. I kind of like it better to see the person, because that's kind of like the focal point, and I care less about really the car. You know, there's something about the person that's nice to look at versus like this old car. So once you got that, you can just go ahead and hit save. Now her name is Mechanic 2. And I'll just save it here on the desktop. I already have a Mechanic 2 image that I did last time, but this image right here actually started as a JPEG. It didn't start as a Photoshop image. So if I look at my links palette here, you can find that by going into Window Links. I can see that, you know, it says JPEG. So I want to switch this to the file that I just created, which was a Photoshop file, the file that I created the mask for her. So what you can do is you can just right click on this and you can say relink. And then when I relink, I can find that new image, hit open, and then there is the image. And then I can take this gradient in InDesign away.
Another fly.
Yeah. So did somebody have a question?
Another fly.
Who? What was the question? So okay. So anyway, see now that looks better in my opinion, right? Now the type's readable. She's readable. Maybe I'd have to fix some of it in Photoshop, but now it's coming together a little bit better. So any questions about that? Making a mask? That's kind of like the most easy way to do it. Now there's other ways to make masks in Photoshop. So, and these different ways can have a positive effect in InDesign, because they'll help you do some other things in InDesign. So another way to make a mask is to actually use I'm gonna go back here, I'm gonna duplicate her. So you can use the pen tool to draw around her, and the pen tool in Photoshop is just like the pen tool in Illustrator. But they work and they have different purposes. In Illustrator, the pen tool is like your primary way to create art. In Photoshop, it's used mostly to create masks and what's called a clipping path. And a clipping path is something that actually is used by InDesign to have objects flow around an image. So if I click on the pen in Photoshop, point by point, and really it does, it's not, the pen tool in Photoshop is really meant for things that have a nice solid outline. It's hard to work at things that are fuzzy and faded like hair. So it's not going to give you the best results with hair.
A lot of flies. On the ceiling. To spiral.
So it works just like the pen tool in Illustrator.
Really? Where did it come from?
So, so here I'm just clicking point by point.
More.
So once I draw around this person here, I can then right click and I can say make selection. And,
You didn't clean
oops. And let's see. Oh, okay. And I say make selection, and this box comes up here, and I hit OK.
Really?
And now it's now I've created a selection using that path. And it's kind of, it works the same way. I hit the little box down here, and now I just use the pen tool to create a mask. Now with this, so with
Hey,
this,
Joe, Joe,
yes.
the layer panel is hiding underneath the where we are, like our names and our so if you can please move the layer so we know where you're hitting on the bottom.
Yeah, here.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So can you just repeat what you just said, because I didn't know which one you hit.
Yeah, so basically what I was saying is you can use the pen tool, and I drew around here the pen tool. Pen tool works like the pen tool in Illustrator, except in Photoshop, it's really meant to create what's called a clipping mask or clipping path, or you can create a regular mask as well. After you draw around something, you right click and you select make selection. It'll say make selection. That's what I did last time. So now that I have that selection, it's kind of the same process. I would double click on it, or just go straight into properties, go into select and mask, and then play with these different options. Try to clean it up as much as possible. And like I was saying, it's this using a path. It's great for things that have really kind of thick, consistent edge, but it doesn't really work as well for things that are like hair, like things that have lots of transitions and kind of things that fade out. So it's really best to use another tool if you have something that is kind of like really faded and blending into the background. But one thing about the path tool, let me go back, and this is something that works with InDesign. So let me go back to this path. So I created this path. I can use it to create a mask, just like I did with the object detection tool and the quick paint tool. But I can also bring it into InDesign, and I can use it as a means to have text wrap around an image in InDesign. So the way you do that is you actually have to export the path. So in Photoshop, I have a path palette right here. And it's actually up in the corner. So here are the paths. And there's the path that I created for her. and you need to save it. So you can double click on this, and when you double click on the path here, you can save it. So I'll call this mechanic, hit OK. So now it's saved. And at any time now, since it's saved, if I select it and I hit Control and click, I can turn it into a selection. I can also turn it into a mask by hitting on this little layer mask icon. You select it, click on that, and it becomes a mask too. I'll do it again because it wasn't selected before. Click on that. But it actually becomes a special type of mask in Photoshop called the vector mask. So you click on it once, nothing happens, you click on it again, and then you get this vector mask. And a vector mask is same thing as a regular layer mask. It just always has a hard edge to it. So things that have hard edges, you want to use like a vector mask sometimes. The other thing you can do with this though is you can turn it into what's called a clipping path. And if I take this image and I go into clipping path, I just have to designate which path it is, hit OK. And the name now changed. Before, the name was like set into this like regular style text. But when I make it into a clipping path, hit OK, it gets bolded. So now it's a clipping path. And this works with like certain file formats. So if I go to File and I save this as a TIFF, and I'm going to turn off layers for now. And I'm going to go back and save it as a TIFF, turn off layers, save it to my desktop, hit save. Let's see. You can just keep everything here, but for now, I'm going to discard layers and just save a copy, hit OK. Now I'm going to go back into InDesign, and this time around, I'm going to right-click on the mechanic in my links palette, relink it, and I'm going to pick this TIFF. And basically what the clipping path did is it hid the background for me in InDesign. So that clipping path is acting as a mask in InDesign. And you can actually adjust that. So if I go into Object and go into Clipping Path, and there's a couple things I can do. I can go to Options and hit Preview. And then you actually see that path that I created in Photoshop. And you can adjust this. Let's see. So you can do it. You can like invert this, or you can inset it. So in setting the frame, we actually push it in. So it pushed it in to two picas there. So you can do a couple things with that. The other thing you can do is if I have a clipping path set and I have a text box here and I fill it with text, so I'm going to fill that text box by going to type and fill it with the placeholder text. And then I can go into Object, let's see, or actually I'm going to go to Windows and go into Text Wrap. So what this does is it lets me take something that has a clipping path And if I click, let me do that again so you can actually see it happening. So if I click on my image and I have a text box in that same layer that has text, I want to make sure you guys see this. If I go into this text wrap palette and I click on this little third icon, it's like a little oval with lines, and it says wrap around object shape. I click on that, my text will wrap around that clipping path. So that's actually kind of a cool effect. I can increase the amount that it wraps from the side by pushing out like that. And now it has a little bit of space, a little bit more space. So here, you know, I would kind of work on that mask a little bit to make it better. The other thing you can do is you can actually go into Photoshop, and I think you can actually select that path. And let me see if this works. I think you can copy it. Actually, I think I have to go to File, Export. You can actually go to File, Export Paths to Illustrator, and give it a name. So I'll just keep it as mechanic. Hit OK. It will export the path as an Illustrator file. So I'll just save it to my desktop. And then I can open this in Illustrator. I know there's a lot of steps with this, so hit OK. And it's there. And there's the path. So I'll fill it with a color. And there it is right there. And then you can actually take this now, copy it, and then go into InDesign, and then paste that. And then what I would do is scale it up. Oops. And that can act as a clipping, as a way to clip out the text as well. So you can see here, I clicked on that with that artwork, and then I can increase it as well. This artwork is acting as a clipping mask too. And so what you could do, I'm going to push that to the side, and I'm going to push my text to the side, and I'm going to go back now with the image here, the mechanic, and I'm going to right click, and I'm going to relink the original Photoshop artwork that had the mask. So it has that nice faded look. Now I'm going to bring this Illustrator artwork back, put it on top of her, line it up as nicely as I can, make the color, give it no fill with the fill. So I'll hit the /. It works just the same way as it does in Illustrator. And then create my text box here. Oops. And I'm going to fill it with the placeholder text. I'm going to make that text box again instead. Oops, I was on the wrong layer, so let me see. Okay, I'm going to create a text box, fill it with placeholder text.
Every time we open the window.
just going to make sure I bring it to the top here. So I'm going to go to Object, Arrange.
Because of the plants coming.
Oh, hold on. This whole image has this text wrap turned on, so I'm going to turn it off. Okay, so there it is. And then
I was like, what are you
I'm going to
doing?
paste my Illustrator art back. I lost it for some reason. So I'm going to scale that up, have it match.
I did watch my.
Turn on the text wrap. And so, and then I can go to no fill. And so now I can have text wrap around her image using a combination of the clipping path and the mask that I created in Photoshop. So it's kind of a nice effect to play with. I'm just gonna so you just kind of see how that wraps around. So you can have that text wrap around the image by using the text wrap and a clipping path. So the paths, are something that you use in Photoshop too. You can bring them in Illustrator, and you can also bring them into InDesign. So is there any questions about that? So wrapping text around things is a nice way to actually have type and image kind of complement one another. So it's a kind of a nice feature that you'll want to use for certain types of, layouts, occasionally. So, yeah, so I just wanted to show you that. So you might want to try it for this assignment. It's just like an interesting way to do something with the image itself. But it's a lot of, there's a lot of steps in there, but it's text wrap is what you want to play with. So any questions about using text wrap and the masking aspect of it?
No.
So I just kind of want to get into masking a little bit, make you understand that process. Is there any questions about InDesign in general then, about using InDesign at all? So, okay.
Are we going to turn this in using like the PDF format or the InDesign format?
Yeah, that's a good question. So when you hand in the assignment, you can just send me a PDF.
Okay.
Just send me a PDF. That's fine. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
So we need to download Photoshop now.
Yeah, so I'm showing you the masking part of it because you kind of have two options if you have a busy background. And the two options are using this gradient in InDesign. You can use that. You can do some other things too. So another thing to do with a busy background is what's called ghosting. So this is kind of like a simple option. So you can ghost out parts of the background. And basically what that means is you basically create a box and you just reduce the opacity of the box. So let's say I want to have something, and to show you this, I'm going to double click on my image here and go to Edit Original. the mask. Let's see. Okay, so the mask went away because I saved this new version without the mask, and it updated in InDesign. So another thing you can do too is called ghosting. If you want to have the type be readable, one of the simplest things you can do is just create a box, fill it with white or some other color, and then reduce the opacity. So if I want to have something readable, let's say here, here's a text frame, double click on the fill swatch, make it white. So now it's a white box, and then I would just lower the opacity up here. So you can kind of see through it, and then I can add my text. You know, so the text is easy to read if I use that ghosted box. You know, I'm just going to center it. So you can do that technique too. You can ghost something out. You know, you kind of slightly see through it, so you still see the background a little bit. You can play with that opacity, you know, kind of lower it until it gets to a point where you can see the background, but the type is still readable. I mean, the other thing you could do too is knock out the type. So that's kind of doing the opposite. It's making the background black. And I'm going to increase that opacity, select the box with a type, and then make the type white. So that's another option too. So if you don't know Photoshop and you don't want to make a mask, those were two more options that you could work on to actually have the type readable. You can ghost it out by reducing opacity, or you can just create a box like this and then have white on black type. So you got two options. So, yeah, I mean, I recommend if you already have Creative Cloud, I just recommend going ahead and downloading Photoshop too. You know, you might as well have them both available to you. So, and then if you need to, you know, do a mask, you can just, Photoshop, do that masking in Photoshop. But it all depends on your layout, like how you create your layout. So that's like the factor that's gonna, you know, make this, make me, you know, it's part of your decision process. So yeah, those are two additional things to do besides masking. You could, you know, play with those two options. So does anybody have sketches for this that they want to show, or any ideas that they want to talk about for this project? Because I want to see some sketches. I want to see some designs. Anybody? So try to work on sketches. You know, you can send them to me in Discord. That's what a lot of people are doing. So send them to me in Discord. I want to see what ideas you're going to come up with for this, and think about the layout. I don't want you to copy what I have. You know, maybe you play with text. You know, there's a lot of things you do to play with text in different ways. Maybe you have a text box. A along the side like this.
Can I ask something?
Sure.
So when you did the wrapping, the text wrap around the picture, that
Yeah.
was not the cover. That was not the first page.
What do you mean it was not the cover?
Like, are we doing the cover, like a cover of a magazine?
Yeah.
Okay, but when you were doing the wrap around the picture of a text, that you cannot put it on the first cover.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I'm just showing you how the text wrap works. You know, your cover probably wouldn't have that much text. So, yeah, that was just an example. I mean, it was still the cover. I was just adding text and just showing you how it wraps around.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, I want to see you guys experiment with the design a little bit. Try, you know, different arrangements. You know, don't copy what I just did here. So make sure you have like a different layout than what I have. But the whole process of masking, it, you know, it opens up like lots of ideas. Like, for example, maybe something you can do too is a box that comes out, but it comes out from behind her and in between her and the background. You know, so like I like to do that sometimes. So I'm going to go into my artwork. And I'm going to get rid of the path. I don't really need it. I'm going to bring the gradient back. And then you can, you know, sometimes you can play with like a shape layer or something behind her, which is always kind of interesting for design purposes. So in Photoshop, you can create these different shapes, you know, basic geometric shapes. With that one here, it's the circle. And because I have the layer opacity lower, it's fading it out. But if I create a new layer in Photoshop, you know, it's just a different effect to play with. Or maybe I just have this, I'll make a selection, you know, and fill it with white, and maybe my type goes in there. So, or maybe it's even, you know, a color or something. So then I can put, you know, something in here, you know, type in there as well. So that's another way to do it. So all these different ways, it's just about having your type be readable along with your background image. So yeah, I just wanted to show you that aspect of using Photoshop with InDesign. Any questions about this assignment and what you guys need to do? All right. So I just want to look at your last assignment and just kind of go through them real quick, just see what everybody did. So let's kind of do that. I know some of you are still working on it. So I'm going to bring this over. And as I show these, why don't you guys talk about what you're trying to do in the assignment. So let me see if I can make it smaller. So Emmy, this is yours. So Emmy kind of described the concept and how you were, where your different kind of color color palettes being used here?
The color that I use to cause I just choose the color to compare combination, and then I think shark is kind of cute, so I just draw that, and then just trying to make the word to like two different fonts.
Okay.
Yeah, and on the bottom there. I think this is like kind of easier to see that. Yeah.
What do you mean it's easier to see? What is?
Like I used to I want to like create more like kind of like different place to put on the word, and then but I just recognized that it's really not fit in the shark, so I just decided to put it on the bottom.
Yeah, I mean, it depends how you do it. So I think there could be room if you explored it a little bit. Like
Yeah.
have the shark on top and toast, or maybe even put the words inside the shark.
Uh-huh.
So it's just a matter of exploring some options. And let's see. So I think with some of these options too, like when you're dealing with like monochromatic type, I mean, color that's analogous or monochromatic, maybe not use black. And what's kind of cool sometimes is actually to make your outlines a color. So instead of just using black outlines, maybe use blue. So you should kind of try that. Like think about changing that outline color.
Okay.
Maybe like instead of black here, you can use like orange, let's say.
Mm-hmm. It's kind of different outline color, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I can fix it.
Yeah, if you want to make some changes to it, that's fine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So what kind of restaurant is this? Shark Toast?
It's kind of like you made a sandwich, but you fried it.
Okay.
Yeah. So kind of like
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes, just explore other aspects with the color, your lines can be different color. That text can be a little bit different too, maybe different colors for the eyes. So yeah, but yeah, it's good overall. So good job. So let's see what else. Let's see. Catherine, this came out really good. So,
thank you.
Yeah, your the pen work. Oops, sorry, I lost it. So the actual drawing of the pig with was that image traced, or are you using like the pen and changing the width of the pen as your?
Yeah, I used the pen tool, and then there was like an option to like change the width of the pen, and I just used that.
Yeah, the variable width.
Yeah.
Option.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that came out really good. I think here too, you're keeping the outline in the text color consistent. So I'm glad you're not using black, but maybe explore different outline colors instead of just brown. I mean, that's the greasy part of it, I guess. Keeping it brown, but yeah, overall these came out really good.
Thank you.
So I'd like the combination of typefaces that you're using. So this typeface is like a claridon, or they call them like Egyptian typefaces. Slab serif has that slab serif, so that looks really good. Kind of like a hand-drawn font. So yeah, this is a lot of fun. I like this one a lot. The colors really stick out. So let's see. Alexis. So Alexis, explain your concept.
Well, one of the lines didn't show on the side.
Oh, is it missing?
Yeah, it's missing. It's supposed to be like that.
Oh, okay. Yeah, this is, to me, when you start to do a lot of the 3D, especially in the smaller text, it gets lost.
Yeah.
For the bigger text, it works for something like this, but kitchen, I wouldn't extrude it out. I would just kind of keep it. And the arm flexing, I think that needs a little bit more work if you're going to do like a fact where you have negative space, kind of defining it. So you have all this negative space, and you kind of know that it's an arm, but it doesn't really, pop
What
out.
it's supposed to be all colored in. It's just I'm not sure what happened.
Oh, okay. I know
So it's supposed to be like colors like that.
Oh, okay. I get it.
So I'm gonna have to resend it to you. But that's basically one of the colors that.
Oh, okay. I understand now. Yeah, I mean that's a nice vector drawing then. Once you have it colored in, I kind
Yeah.
of prefer it without the 3D.
Yeah. That was my original one. So.
Yeah, I think the 3D can be fun, but it can be like too much information.
Yeah.
And it distracts from the name. So keeping it simple is better.
Okay.
So cool. Is this like a real restaurant or totally new?
No, I just came up with it.
I feel like it's like a restaurant for people who work out a lot,
Yeah, it's supposed to be, yeah.
Yeah.
More like a health type, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So it's a cool concept. So yeah, I would kind of, explore type variation. Like you don't have to keep all your type together at the same time. So you maybe powerhouse here, maybe kitchen comes out somewhere else, so you can explore variations of the type a little bit.
Yeah.
So yeah, that looks cool. So all right, cool, good job. So let's see. Rosio, you didn't hand it in yet, so waiting to get it.
I handed it earlier.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Okay, let's see. Oh, there you go. Okay. Oh, okay. Oh, nice. So I like the design, and the thing is, I don't think it needs a circle at all.
Okay.
Like with the logo, you need it just added information. It doesn't help the everything that you need is already in the logo, and emphasizing it with a circle is almost like distracting.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, so stay away from like circles and borders and elements like that. Let the main concept like speak for itself, and don't try to emphasize it with extra things if you don't have to. Yeah, these are really good. I like it in black and white because I like this image and the eye. It's like so stylized. That came out really good. I kind of like this one as well, with a yellow background. So these all were really interesting styles too for the eye and the kind of like the shaky look. I mean, that's kind of a good look for somebody who's over caffeinated. Shaky line style,
Yeah.
So yeah, these are nice. I like how you're experimenting with all aspects of line color and image color.
Thank you.
That's really good. So cool. Okay, good job. Let's see who else. So Randa, so you got the concept.
Yeah.
So with yours, I would probably make the icicle, the text, a little bit more readable. Same with creamery. Maybe, yeah, the word gets lost a little bit.
It's hard to read.
Yeah, and one of the things you can do is actually after you design something, you can trace over it again with the pen tool and make a new version. So here you're kind of combining pieces together, maybe using the Pathfinder a lot. But then you get to a certain point where you may want to just individually look at each aspect and think about the readability for each aspect of the design. So The icicle is a cool effect, but if it gets lost, then maybe separate the letters and then kind of fine tune each one so it gets readable again.
I did the boxes on the top if you want to show the.
Yeah, that's great to show a color palette. So
Mhm.
that's nice too.
Mhm.
So yeah, it's a good job with that.
Mhm.
Daniel, nothing yet. Charles, I think his wife is having a baby. Oh, maybe that's the baby right there in his. You put it there. Mary. So yeah, these came out great. What is your concept supposed to be?
I really like fruits, so I decided to do a fruit theme. And because Animal Crossing came out, so I thought, why not do fruits? Kind of like diner shop, so that's why I called it Pop.
Okay. What does this have to do with Animal Crossing?
Oh, because they have like fruits and stuff on Animal Crossing.
Oh, okay. That's a popular game.
Yeah.
I like it. Now, the one thing about, I like the design of the cherries. I like the look and feel. It's simplified. I don't think you have to have text flow so tightly around them, though. I think it'd be interesting to see how it would work just with a simple circle as being the way that the text curves around. Kind of like what Pop does on the bottom,
Mhm.
but kind of just think about simple geometries and then use that as the basis for how the text flows around the shape. So I think I think the word cherry would be emphasized more if it was just on a round circle.
Kind of like Pop.
Kind of,
Like
yeah.
Amber, yeah.
Yeah, kind of like Pop. So the same type of idea. Yeah. So I think too, it's like when you work on these, you have different types of logos, So Rosio had like a sketchy look, kind of like a more agitated type style, kind of like it's kind of like punk rock type, uh, lettering. Let's say it's like very hand drawn, very loose, kind of like Art Chantry, that artist I think I showed you at the beginning of the term. But for some logos, maybe they should be more refined too. So if something's meant to have that kind of like agitated look, like the idea of the I being written with a shaky hand, to give the sense that, that person has too much caffeine. But this maybe, the word cherry just doesn't have to follow it so closely, and maybe it follows a better curve so it kind of sticks out a little bit. But they're all really good designs. Too. So yeah, I think they came out really good. I think like with the black one though, like if the cherry was around, it followed like a rounded edge a little bit. Maybe even think about the cherries themselves. There's ways to maybe like simplify it even further if you wanted to.
Mhm.
But yeah, it's a good job. So I like the concept. So let's see. Next. Vivian, I'm still waiting. Did you hand it in? Okay, still waiting at Vivian. This is really cool. So, Zoe, explain what your idea is. What type of restaurant is this?
It's a fried chicken restaurant.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, like spicy chicken.
Yeah, it reminds me of like the hot.
Yeah, I try to use like all the like warm colors to like emphasize the spiciness, and then yeah, the name was from because like in a lot of like Asian countries, all of the best restaurant all are hidden in like small alleys. So I name it like alley chicken. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, has that still to it. For some reason, I'm getting my voice back. I don't know why. So hold on, I'm gonna just mute you. let's see if it goes away. So yeah, it has the hand-drawn feel. It feels like it's more casual. And I like this one right here is the one that is probably most appropriate. But I kind of like the color scheme of this one. Yeah, I like how that feels for some reason. But of course, this one is probably most appropriate. But I like the whole style. Everything kind of goes together stylistically. So I like how that came together.
Thank you.
And the black and white one works well too. You might want to do one though where it is 100% black and 100% white. You know, so maybe you do one where you see just the outline of the fire, and a chicken with like a white fill.
Yeah.
So I like the style. These came out pretty good. So let's see. Let's go on to Caesar. So yeah, your concept's pretty simple. It has like a 1970s feel to it. Can you explain your process with this and what is Caesar? Let's see. Oh, I don't even see Caesar here. So I like his work, except he needs to pay attention to letter spacing. So like bringing the letters together, maybe there's a stroke on the letters, but the typography just needs to be focused on a little bit. That I should separate from the M. But the different color concepts are pretty cool. I like how it's very simplified. It's kept simplified in geometric. So, yeah, some nice variety in that look. And I think that's it for everybody. So if you guys didn't hand in something, please hand it in and finalize those designs, and then we can go over them in class. Did anybody have any issue with like color themes or anything like that in Photoshop? So, keep on exploring those color themes, thinking about the different types of color swatches that would go together. So color themes is great to just explore all these different types of color systems. So yeah, so basically that's kind of everything I want to go through tonight, and just covering some of the masking techniques for you. So as you work on I still want to see like initial sketches for this magazine cover. So if you can send them to me, you can send them through Discord, and then try to finish up the restaurant assignment and try to get that done. So any other questions about anything? So, okay, well, what I'm probably going to do, I'm probably going to have a couple additional videos that I'll send you guys to follow. So I kind of wanted to, I have another masking video actually, if you need more help on masking. I have something on YouTube already that I can send you. The other thing I want you to pay attention to is this idea of the call to action element here. Like here, I have these two wrenches. So the call to action is kind of like a little mini logo. And I want you to think about that. I want you to think about the design for that call to action. So for assignment 7, there's a part of it where I say add a call to action item. So it's going to be like a simple logo or a burst. Sometimes they call them bursts. You can have like a price in there, like a phone number information, anything to attract attention that adds to that magazine layout. So make sure you think about that element and put some work into it. But it should be simple. It should be simple. It shouldn't be too fancy. It's not like the restaurant logo where you have stylize any, it doesn't have to be overly stylized. So keep it simple. So, all right. Well, I was thinking,
So we shouldn't involve like Illustrator and Photoshop and in InDesign. We can just do InDesign and Photoshop if we want to.
I think you might have to use all of them though. So, it depends. You don't need to use Photoshop if you have a background image and you use some of these techniques with ghosting or adding like a text block that has color and knocking out the type. So you don't need to necessarily have Photoshop and cut out that background with a mask. You can find ways around it. But I really want you to use Illustrator because I want you to create this idea of a call to action item and cut and paste it from Illustrator into InDesign. Just make sure you put it on a separate layer, but I want you to have something else on the page visually besides the text and the person working on the car.
Okay.
So call to actions can be like visit, Facebook for more information, all sorts of different things. So, okay. Well, that's all I have for tonight. Any other questions about anything? So keep on sending me your assignments. I'm not going to really mark you down too much if they're late. I just want to make sure you guys finish anything. If you have any questions, let me know, and then we can do some one-on-one Zoom sessions. But I think we're good for now. So I'm just gonna end it for tonight here, and then I will see you again on Tuesday.
Okay.
So okay.
Okay.
So,
Bye-bye.
all right, everybody. Have a good night. I'll post this video probably tomorrow. Maybe tonight, but mostly tomorrow. So, all right.
Okay.
All right. Good. All right. Have a good night, everybody.
Good night.
Bye.
Bye.